So thank you so much. First, I want to thank Mr. Coleman for joining us today. We very much appreciate it. I just want to start off by getting a little bit of background about yourself and about how you got involved with the mortuary business. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with your business and where you're located?
Absolutely. Well, good morning. And even before I give my rundown, let me say thank you to Dr. Roberts. Thank you likewise to the researchers that have, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you both for putting this together and even considering me to be a part of this interview. Again, my name is Kendall Coleman. I was born and raised in Woodville, Texas. Grew up in the family of Coleman's owning a funeral home here in Woodville. It was originally Coleman's Tyler County Funeral Home. And as a young boy, I would basically go around and do my work in terms of just learning the business, helping out with the different owners or managers at that time, whether it have been my dad or my different uncles that at one time owned and operated Coleman's Tyler County Funeral Home, all the way up until I was age 18. And then I went to Commonwealth Institution of Funeral Service in Houston and studied and got a degree in applied science. So, you know, being in the business or being around the business, growing up, also going to school, led me to living in Houston for right at close to 15, 16 years, relocating back to Woodville, continuing to help my dad with the funeral home up until 2015. They decided basically to, at that point, close their doors, and they end up selling the building to another company. So in 2015, I had a location in mind, and at that point pursued the opportunity of owner and operation of my own funeral home. So me and my wife, we purchased what is now Coleman's Family Mortuary, different location, better location. God was bigger. He proved to me that God is bigger. Was devastated at the time of the decision that the family was making, but God had a bigger and greater plan. So as of 2020, we have been operating and going strong by the grace of God. So that's just a little bit of how I got here and how I guess you can say I'm considered an owner at this point.
So you mentioned obviously the family legacy of being in the mortuary business, and we are primarily focused on Freedom Colonies and rural areas. So can you tell us a little bit about your Freedom Colony ties and your connection to the region?
Well, absolutely. And even before I talk about Woodville, I go back, and Dr. Roberts can verify, we have talked and shared on many occasions discussing where even the Colemans as a whole come from. One of those Freedom Colony areas is a town considered Shankleville, Texas. Colemans are off of the branch of the Shankles. And I'm pretty sure if you haven't had an opportunity, you know the story of Jim Shankle and how we got here, and how, you know, Shankletown as a whole, Shankleville, sorry, as a whole was established, recognized by the state of Texas, a historical marker, and being that, you know, led to the Colemans. Jamestown, Texas is where my grandfather and his siblings were born, raised. So that Jamestown is also a part of the Freedom Colonies. And one of the siblings, my grandfather as a whole, relocated to Woodville. Originally, they started in the Jasper, Newton area, and they expanded to Woodville and opened those of families in the front yard, you know, celebrating their funerals and their loved ones. So there's a lot of importance, and even, you know, if it gotten to the point, and there used to be a time where families will, their loved one would die, and the deceased will stay in the house with them for 2 or 3 days while they mourn that loss. And I thought at some point we probably would see more of that under COVID-19 if the family requested, hey, that we have what used to be considered a home funeral, where we bring the deceased to the funeral home, get them prepped, and take them back to the home and sit them in the front living room and allow their family to mourn and to take it all in for a few days. But during that time, of course, they had to wait for burial. They had to wait and prepare the whole, but to whatever degree and extent that is needed to be carried out, I think is very important. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, sure. I want to talk about obituaries for a minute. As Dr. Roberts mentioned, we are doctoral students, and so we are all about research at the moment. And some of my research focuses on grassroots archives. And I know that, especially in Black families and African American families, obituaries hold, a high esteem. We definitely care for those a lot more, and making sure that the information in those are accurate and completely and comprehensively tell the story of our loved ones. So I just want to talk about that just a little bit, that significance in making sure that the information is in there. How do you go about well, let me say this. Let me go back. Let me backtrack.
I'm with you. I'm ready. I have an answer for you. I'm ready. So,
well, if you can decipher through that question.
Well, first, even before I answer that, I have to give credit where credit is due. In most cases, I don't handle the obituary side of things. That's Patience, my wife. She takes care of that. I'm the one that basically goes back and critique everything that she has done. I'm the one that looks over it and makes sure that it's I guess you can say to my liking, or if there's something that I catch that may need to be changed. That's me. I'm a big critic of her work a lot of times, but she does a great job in what she does. But we get with the family and we try to gather as much information to help them to compile it into a program. And over the years, we've seen where it used to be a fold, a double fold, where it just had the picture on front, the deceased name, date of birth, date of death, the church information, and the pastor information, to opening it up and having the bio. From the bio, it went to the order of service on the flip side of the paper. And on the back, it had the pallbearers, whether it be active, honorary, and the repast information, the interment information, and the funeral service entrusted to information. Since then, and those have been years ago that it was like that, we have gotten really custom with the programs. We have beginning to add more, which I think is great. Again, it goes back to whatever the family wants and whatever the family budget can afford and allow, to where now we have 4 and 5 pages of obituaries, where, and I'm talking funeral programs when you say obituaries, but where there's tons and tons of pictures where the deceased had an opportunity to celebrate the different loved ones that want to include their pictures in the program. It's timely. It is timely, but I feel like it's most definitely honorable and worthy of that family being able to celebrate and include whatever they need to include in the program to honor that life. And going back to the actual bio part of the obituary, the storyline, the timeline of the loved one. I mean, we just recently had a service where that loved one, her family, we were able to basically gather information from an old obituary to basically help fill in the needs. I mean, and in some cases, you may have a deceased to come to where there's no family, and you kind of have to do research to get the information to where you can gather and put together a bio to celebrate their life. But I feel like, and you have that clip in the service where it says read obituary solemnly. I think so often, if that is overlooked, I mean, reading the history, the storyline of that person. I mean, I'm so familiar with it that I can tell you that in the first paragraph is going to say that that deceased was born on such and such date to such and such parent, and then you drop down to the hobby part of it, what they enjoy doing, what were their hobbies. They joined this church at an early age. They accepted Christ at an early age in life, and who preceded them in death, and who they leave to cherish their memories. I feel all of that is indeed important to highlight and to give the storyline of the deceased. I can keep going, but I know Dr. Rob was like, "Shut up, Kendall. We got to move on."
No, I think obituaries definitely provide a lot of information, and we, as we try to locate more freedom colonies that are unmapped, those are definitely invaluable pieces of information and resources.
Yeah, and speaking of freedom colonies and discussing that information, and this is the advertisement piece of me. Please forgive me, but I would love to have the opportunity to serve a family that would want to relive and go back to old traditional funeral. Where if it's taking the loved one out on a horse carriage, I would love to do that. If it's an outhouse where they want to have the service at home and the family gather there at the house, I would love to be able to relive and react those type of services for a family. I mean, it does me well. And even wearing the old overalls and boots as funeral directors, and taking off the black suit and the tie and the shirt, just basically being able to reach them where they are and where they were at that time, and just celebrate it. It would do me well. Trust me.
That's awesome. Well, we hope that someone reaches out and it allows you the opportunity.
Do you still have my phone number? Because you got to help me. You got to help.
That's fine. I wonder if that would be more common now, given COVID-19. I remember maybe a few weeks ago in Arkansas was the first time I saw. It was an African-American family in Arkansas, and they were hosting their loved one's funeral outside their home in their front yard. So it might happen. We are changing. We've already seen it, and funerals are going to be dramatically different because of COVID-19. And so I think I'm curious to see how the culture will adapt to that change. So that very well be happy.
And let me add, and even though the reopening of the states and the different phases that our governors and different people are trying to implement, I mean, I don't feel that we're out of the woods yet. I don't think we would ever have what is considered to be the old normal. I mean, I think we're in a new time, a new way of being able to celebrate. And saying that, I mean, I think as time goes on, we're going to see a lot, even more changes that will take place. I mean, it's been difficult for families to have to leave their loved ones at the hospital, and the term that has been used is dying alone.
Right.
It's been difficult for them to go back home and have to get updates through whether it be Facebook Live or doctors. And I saw just the other day where the nurses was holding the signs out of the window that said, sharing with the family that he passed peacefully. That's very difficult, and that's a whole lot different than what we're accustomed to. I believe that as the reopening take place and the numbers begin to spike even more, as we're seeing happen, I just really believe that even with that, we're going to still see the opportunity to serve families different than what we are accustomed to doing. But even in the midst of that, I think it's important for me and other people that are like me to make sure that we give the family the proper homegoing, the proper closure that they need. Being out in the cemetery and people want to come, as long as they're spread it out. If they want to have a band, if they want to have pop truck where the music is playing, whatever it is that is needed, I think is very important.
Yeah. Well, this would be a good segue to for the next question. To what degree do you think Freedom Colonies, families, and the communities themselves have been affected by COVID-19 restrictions on funerals and burial arrangements? A lot of cities are designating these death task force networks or services, and it's a very routine way of handling and caring for the deceased if they've passed from COVID-19. So have you seen any impacts with the communities you work with, the Freedom Colonies and the families?
Absolutely. I've had a few graveside services to say in these Freedom Colony areas, Biloxia being one, Bunware and those areas. So, and one of the families, we actually had a funeral scheduled right before the order come in place of, basically not having gatherings. So we had to basically go back and make sure that we stayed in compliance, because the last thing you want from your establishment to happen is to be fined or to be known for an establishment that is breaking the rules and the laws that have been put in place. So communicating that to families to say, hey, look, and even at this point, we can't enforce a family to make a decision. We're not law enforcement. The only thing that we can do is recommend and encourage them to do what is safe. So, in these areas here, it's been an advantage, disadvantage. The advantage is that the numbers are not high. In rural areas, we haven't seen the numbers like the city of Houston or New Orleans or different places. So it's been a slow process of numbers, and that's good. That's really good. But the disadvantage is that we don't know if everybody's been tested, or the people that are coming in, if they've been around different people that have maybe carried the virus or carrying the virus, and it helping to spread. So another disadvantage is that I'm gonna tell you, I don't know that everybody that has passed away, if the test results, or even if they were tested for COVID-19, if they even came back in time before the death. So in our standpoint, we have to treat all bodies at this point as if they are COVID-19. And not knowing is hard. It's very hard. But even with families, having to make those adjustments of not being able to celebrate life the way they're accustomed to. And now we're out in cemeteries, and in rural cemeteries, it's a whole lot different than those that are cemeteries, where I know in private cemeteries right now, I don't even know that the families are allowed to come, and if they are, they're only allowed to come in numbers. In rural community cemeteries, being that they're not private, being that there's no ownership, families have been able to come in numbers greater than 10. The only thing that we do is try to encourage them to wear masks, make sure they wear gloves, to keep spread and distance between each other. So that alone is a whole lot different. I mean, we are a touchy-feely type people, and I say that in a clean way.
Yeah.
My mom will tell you fast and quick, she's a hugger, but we're not able to hug right now.
Right.
That's
I'm the same way.
Most painful things for people, because my biggest struggle at funerals is making sure that the flow of viewing the deceased continues to flow smoothly without everybody wanting to hug the wife or the next of kin. So, and most next of kins, most wives, most children, they look forward to those hugs from some girl that passed by, or from the neighbor that they know from down the street. They look forward to those hugs. But now we're at a place where we don't know if hugging is safe, and we never thought that we would be there. But that's the reality of the world. We're there. It's hard for families. So And I can just keep going, but I'm gonna stop.
No, this is all good conversation. Don't want you to feel like you have to limit yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
So prior to COVID-19, did your funeral home have any plan in place on how to deal with an infection, is like a contagious body? It's like somebody who dies from COVID-19. And if not, what does your plan look like today, or how is that evolving? How is that process evolving?
Absolutely, yes. To answer the question, we have always practiced and made sure that we were safe, that we were using the personal protective equipment needed, to protect ourselves. Because I'm a father, I had to go back home to so when deceased bodies come here, we want to make sure that we are meeting the standard of OSHA and keeping everything in perspective of protecting our own health. I mean, prior to this COVID-19, you have, HIV cases that sometimes come through, and you want to make sure that that you're protecting yourself. And even saying that, I maybe shouldn't say this, but I can recall working at a funeral home at one time in Houston. I'm gonna make sure that it's not labeled COVID. But yeah,
Understandable.
the owner was like, hey, we went to make a removal, and I'm putting my gloves on, and I was taking a little bit longer than what he wanted me to take. And he said, hey, I don't have all day. Just come on, pick up the body and let's go. And I said, no, I have all day.
Right.
Gloves on, because I want to protect myself. And I knew then that I wasn't going to be working for him long.
Absolutely.
Thank God I'm not working with him anymore, because my health is my wealth, and I believe in protecting me at all times. So that was the second part of that question that I've forgotten because I've been running my mouth. So
it's okay. I think it was how has the procedure changed, if it has, now that we are in the COVID-19 era and have to plan for funerals moving forward?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, hey, can I call him back. It's changed tremendously. I mean, we are a people person. We are a people firm. We believe in family. Mm-hmm. So it's hard when we realize that we have a death and we have a large family, and we are having to deal with the reality that not everybody may be able to come and plan for the funeral, where we would maybe have people just kind of hanging in the lobby. We realize too that has changed and shifted a little bit. Now, I will tell you, we have not kept anybody outside of our doors. I've been hearing stories of people having to sign paper through doors, sign paper. I'm so sorry. I do need to catch this. Can we hold for just a moment?
Sure.
Okay, sorry.
So far, we've had a wonderful conversation. We're taking a little bit of a commercial break. And what I'd like to do at this time, while we're waiting for Mr. Coleman, the owner of the funeral home that we're interviewing today, I'd like to take a moment just to have Jennifer and Skylar. You just met some of you met them for the first time this morning, and you may only know about my association with Texas Freedom Colonies Project, but we're a larger team. We are a statewide social justice, educational, and research organization. And so we've got quite a reach, we got quite a team. And I just briefly want to have, in one or two sentences, have Jennifer speak to exactly her function on the team, what she works on and what her research focus is. And then I'd like Skylar to do the same.
All right, so I'm Jennifer Blanks. I support the Texas Freedom Colony Atlas. So the website where you can view the map Freedom Colonies, I manage that database. And also my research interest on the team has to do with preservation planning of cemeteries in rural Texas, specifically the Freedom Colonies. And understanding their disaster management plans and how they mitigate and recover from natural disasters such as floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, etc.
And my name is Skylar Carter. I am from Muskogee, Oklahoma. My research really focuses on connecting the Black placemaking field and with grassroots archives. So looking at, what kind of information do we hold in homes and personal archives that can contribute to the lasting legacy and noting the sustainability and heritage of historically Black settlements. Additionally, I'm interested in museum curation and the representation and Afro-Native American heritage and freedmen heritage of Black settlements. So,
like I said, they're fabulous. And I'm fortunate to have them on the team. They're also, as I said before, doctoral students. And can you tell them the universities that you have your previous degrees from? Where are they?
Okay, so I'm one of those people that's been to 3 institutions to get my education. So,
well, the most recent.
Yes, most recently, proud graduate of the Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi for my master's degree in environmental science. And my undergraduate degree was is at Northern Arizona University, also environmental science.
I've been everywhere as well. My undergraduate degree is in agriculture business, and I got that from Dordt College in Sioux Center, Iowa. And I got my master's from the greatest HBCU in the United States, Alabama A&M University. Go Bulldogs! And that's in urban planning, urban and regional planning. So.
Right. So we have some HBCU roots that have joined us here at Texas A&M University. And I'm so grateful for that. The next thing that I want to do as we take a break and wait for Mr. Coleman to return, we're all, oh, he's back. Fantastic. All right. So we'll transition back to our wonderful co-hosts here, Jennifer and Skylar, who will continue to talk a bit more about the relationship between African-American businesses, freedom colonies, and COVID-19.
Okay. We were actually on the way to the last question, which was, Mr. Coleman, what resources do you think your funeral home is lacking against this battle with COVID-19 and the possible influx of having to have funeral arrangements? What resources do you think you all are lacking, and what do you need?
First, even before I answer that question, let me say thank you for the commercial break, and I do apologize.
No worries.
And really, what happened is it helps with the question that we were on prior to me doing the commercial break. In this industry, you have to be prepared for changes. You have to be prepared for the unexpected. You may go to bed at 10 p.m. and at 10:30 you may get a death call. So you have to respond a whole lot differently. So the question I think prior to was, how have we made adjustments?
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19. We're always making adjustments. I mean, if you can't be flexible, if you can't adjust to what's going on around you, this is truly not the industry for you. So being under the COVID-19, we've had to make so many adjustments. But we have continued to make sure that even in adjusting, we've been able to serve families in a way that God would be pleased. So as I was stating, that whole ordeal of handing papers out of the door to sign or not wanting to come in contact with the family because of fear, we've had to push all of those type of things to the side and just basically step out on faith and risk the chance of meeting and giving the family the service that they deserve. I mean, my thing is, if I can go into Walmart and shop for groceries amongst people that I don't know, surely I can most definitely take out the time to sit down with someone that has entrusted me with their loved one, the people that I do know. So, so we're grateful for that. But To answer the question, the last question that you just presented to me, the resources, because of this, the type of business that we're in, financially, it a lot of times it's good because we're always working. We have the opportunity to always work. I think overall, this pandemic has caught a lot of us off guard, with just more protective, personal protective equipment. So that alone, I think, could have been more accessible, because what happened is that once this pandemic hit, a lot of the vendors, a lot of the suppliers that we would order from, they had already been hit from the upper states that were experiencing more cases. I mean, to be able to order more masks wasn't available to us. The latex gloves, a lot of them have ran out of gloves. I mean, even some of the disinfectant chemicals that we use here are on back order. Body bags, there's a lot of body bag companies that sell body bags that do not have body bags at this time, because everybody has ordered in bulk. Luckily, we haven't had many cases, but even outside of that, I normally try to keep anywhere from 15 to 20 body bags here at the firm anyway. So if cases come, we're good right now, but if it begins to get to a point to where, it's over those 15 to 20, I don't know what to tell them. I mean, but we would have to probably rely on the county to provide more resources to help us in carrying out those deceased from hospitals or homes, wherever the deaths have taken place.
Talk about a little bit about the challenges that you've experienced in getting your resources that you need. Talking with other small businesses in your area, are there any other challenges that you can inform us about that you guys have been experiencing due to COVID?
Well, I would say most definitely, everybody kind of rushed to do the SBA grants and the protection, the payroll protection, because we don't have a very large staff. We didn't apply for the payroll protection loan, but we did go after the grant. I mean, anytime they say grant, we going. So we have not had any type of feedback from the SBA on the grant, which of course that could have just helped in restocking with more protective equipment when that time of being able to order was available. So those resources that are provided through the federal government, of course, we are unfortunately the last one a lot of times to get those. And I'm not just speaking of funeral homes, I'm speaking of the African American race as a whole. I mean, when you look at the fact that I believe one of the steakhouses, was it Ruth Chris or whoever, they got a what was it, $20 million?
$multi-million, yeah.
I mean, like, really, come on, that's more than enough. And I believe they gave it back, so I want to give them credit for doing that. But when you look at the amount that they received, that money could have been dispersed a whole lot differently to some of the small businesses that may have needed it more.
Well, you kind of touched on my next question. I was going to ask you if you had tried applying for government assistance or any kind of funding to help supplement what's going on right now. So you kind of touched on that already. If there was anything else you want to share.
I mean, as we're learning, or what has happened in America for so long, it's just basically being exposed. I mean, the exposures here in terms of how the resources are given out, who has always come first in a lot of things. But I believe in the word of God. Those that are first will be last, and those that are last will be first. So we just rely on our sovereignty to turn the tables around, and He will.
You have really given us a lot of insight today, Mr. Coleman. We definitely appreciate you taking your time from your busy schedule, as as we can see. Do you have any, parting words for our Freedom Colony family, as we call our followers on our page? So if there's anything else that you would like to share with them, I'm going to give you the platform to do so before we.
Absolutely. And thank you, ladies. Thank you, each and every one of you, for so considering us and allowing us to have this time to share from the inside of Coleman's Family Mortuary who we are and what we believe in. To the people that are watching, to the families that follow you guys. If you hadn't heard by now, and if you don't know, we are a firm, we are a family with faith, and we have a heart for people. We don't turn anyone away based on their race, creed, their financial status. We believe in helping because God has helped us so much. So we're blessed to be a blessing, and we continue to seek to be even more blessings to any family that is having to experience death, not just during this COVID-19, but even the aftercare of death, and making sure that we provide the proper service to help you grieve and to help you remember and celebrate your loved one in a way that is fashionable, in a way that is fun, in a way that the fellowship is respected. So here at Coleman's Family Mortuary, if you don't have the phone number, I give it to you again, 409-283-3031, 409-283-3031. We would love to help you. We would love to serve you with the love of God. Again, ladies, thank you. And I'm grateful. I really am.
We're going to have to figure out next time how to put the phone number at the bottom.
Yeah, so I want to actually ask you an important question. I do have to let everyone know that when we first met, and I can't even remember how we first met, but you were one of my first introductions to East Texas in a lot of ways. I think we spent an afternoon eating a little catfish or something, right. And and drove around a little bit a few years ago. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about, from my research standpoint, when I hear about Coleman's, I hear about Coleman's all the way back to the Biloxi, Burial Society. And, you have a very deep, rich history in the area. And so with that, I'm wondering, as much as we say everybody knows the origin or the creation story of Shankleville or Jamestown or any of those communities, everybody tells it a little different. And so I'd love for you, if you felt comfortable, if you want to share a memory or one of the creation stories associated with one of the Freedom Colonies that you're from. I'd like to end that way before we try to address any questions from our audience.
Absolutely, and trust me, I hope I don't get in trouble for sharing my history of that story.
As long as there's no profanity, no N-word, no profanity.
No, well, no profanity. I'll just bleep out the N-word, but even outside of the story that was given to me was that our ancestor, our beginner, our forefather, Mr. Jim Shankle, was that of a slave and was on the other side of the Mississippi River. But here on the Texas side was his wife, his lady, his friend, his boo, his main thing, and he would swim the Mississippi River to cross to Sweetie Pie to get over here to her, and of course she was responsible for taking his food down to the tree to where he was at, and he got caught eating, but she was feeding him, and the slave master here in Texas called back to the other side of the Mississippi River and said that they had one of the slaves that had swum over and wanted to know what they wanted to do. And by the grace of God, that N-word was used to reference who Jim Shankle was, and was allowed to stay here in Texas. And from that's where history has formed. I use the words, and I think even when we met Dr. Roberts, I used these same words: faith and determination go hand in hand, because it was by faith that he took that dive and swam across, and he was determined to get here. And where we are now, as a people, as a family, has been through faith and determination. I think anybody that from the Jamestown, Biloxi area that can relate to the Shankleville, to even their own families, whether it be the Odoms, the families as a whole, the Colemans, they can tell you that faith and determination has been what has helped shape and make who we are. I'm 40 years old, but my life story has been filled with nothing but faith, determination, and being persistent. And even in meeting Dr. Roberts, I mean, it's been awesome to be able to be a part of this. And I know that even through this experience, that my faith with me getting on here is going to lead to even more, because I'm determined to have more and do more for people. So, you know, there's stories that probably could be shared, and there's stories that I haven't heard of, and stories that I would probably learn of as I be a little bit more familiar with a lot of the Freedom Colony areas of Jamestown, even more of the families from Shankleville and Bunware that in Newton County that we're helping, because what it is, I'm actually the third generation of Colemans. I was kind of born on the outside and wasn't a part of that main core, but God has truly positioned me and positioned us to be in a place where we can reach more people, and the relationships are beginning to expand more, because honestly, what I found myself doing more is restoring the last name Coleman. Unfortunately, sometimes things can happen within a family that can begin to destroy and tear a name down if you're not careful, due to unprofessionalism, due to greed. And God has placed us in a position to basically restore the last name Coleman with love and with service and with giving. So we're determined to make Coleman's that household name that has always been and that will always be, just through us. So I'm grateful. Again, I'm grateful, and I'm determined to make life a whole lot different for the generation to come, because I believe in accountability and responsibility. And I teach that to my kids, and I have instilled in them that even if I was to die and go on and be with God tomorrow, that they are to give and they are to serve without attitude. And we're here doing it without attitude. So the only attitude that we have is a grateful attitude, and an attitude of love and service. So that's that. And I look forward to meeting more people, just the followers of the Freedom Colony Project. Thank you so much, Dr. Robinson. To you young ladies that have continued to do great things, no matter how many schools you have gone to or have to go to, just continue to move forward and continue to go. That's what matters. That's what matters.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Don't tell them.
Thank you so much. We're going to end now. I'm going to put up on the screen for you some ways in which you can become a part of not only this monthly event, but the many things that we're trying to do as a research initiative around the state to support African-American settlements as they preserve, as they plan, as they revitalize, and as they build.